The story starts with a mysterious man who's on the run from a bunch of cops. These guys are known as alchemists. This man has a special hand that's got some kind of magic. Anyone he touches with it ends up frozen solid. He's out there, taking down the alchemists one after another. But then, out of nowhere, a weapon shows up and makes him back off. This weapon, it turns out, belongs to an ugly, pathetic alchemist kid, goes by the name Edward, or Ed for short. The mysterious man. He's not happy about this, and he challenges Ed to a duel. Ed's up for it and changes his javelin into a baseball bat, all set to swing. But hold on, suddenly, this fat-ass robot comes up behind him and jumps into the fight against the mysterious man. Thing is, the man's way too strong and kicks both of their asses. Now, Ed's not just any kid, he's got a body that's half metal. When the man sees this, he realizes who he's dealing with, the Elric brothers. These guys are a famous alchemist duo. The robot's the younger brother, and the kid who's always complaining, that's the older one. But the man, he made a big mistake. He made fun of Ed's height, and that's the one thing that really gets Ed fired up. So Ed, he uses his magic, grabs the man's face, and with a huge punch, he sends the man soaring through the air, beating him. Just then, a senior alchemist shows up, thanking the Elric brothers for their work. Meanwhile, the mysterious man, he's not done yet. He uses the water from the street and turns it into a weapon to make his escape. Next thing we know, we're at the state military office with the Elric brothers. General Roy Mustang is there, and he's giving Ed a hard time. He tells Ed that he's no match for this professional assassin named Isaac McDougal, also known as Isaac the Freezer. Isaac, he's got a history. He was a state alchemist, fought in wars. But then, some high-up officials thought he was a traitor, and they went after his family. It was bad. He lost his 2 kids and his wife. After that, he quit, took out those officials, and didn't stop there. He started going after civilians too. Now, the government's got an order to take him down. While they're talking about all this, they get interrupted by a lieutenant named Mies Hughes. Hughes is excited to see the Elric brothers start shaking their bananas.
I beg your pardon?
Sorry, I mean hand. Edward gets really mad at him because he is shaking his brother's banana only. Hughes says he's a big fan and wants them to come over for dinner. He even shows them a picture of his hot wife, trying to get them to agree. They do, and they head over to Hughes' place. That's where Hughes' little daughter calls Ed Lilliput because he's short, and that really ticks him off. However, dinner's ready, and Ed's looking forward to eating. Hughes tells Alphonse, Ed's brother, to take off his helmet and eat, but Ed covers for him, saying Alphonse is trained, always wears the helmet, and doesn't eat. We switch scenes to the central jail, where Isaac the Freezer is trying to make a deal with a prisoner named Kimbley. But Kimbley's not interested, especially after stating that his hairstyle is so ugly. Isaac gets mad and takes out all the guards before he leaves. Back at Hughes' house, Hughes is worried, sitting there thinking about the Elric brothers. His wife comes over, asks what's wrong. Hughes says he's just worried about the 2 kids, how they're in the military, which is a dangerous job, and they're so young. On the other side, Alphonse is talking to Ed about the food he had, asking what it's like to eat. Alphonse gets sad, wondering when he'll get his human body back. The next morning, the military finds out all the guards at the central jail have been taken out by Isaac. The Elric brothers see this too, and they go off to find Isaac. Meanwhile, Isaac's busy doing some rituals around the city. And then, this really ugly old man pops out of the walls, says he's the strongest alchemist, calls himself Alex Louis. Isaac tries to use his magic on him, but the old guy defends himself easily. However, as the Elric brothers arrive at the scene, Isaac uses a canteen to escape. He reaches the top of a building and just relaxes for a moment. Soon, some flame alchemists show up and tell him to surrender, but he refuses and they start attacking him. But he easily dodges their weak attacks and escapes. He arrives at his ritual spot, pleased to find his ugly drawing still there. But the Elric brothers show up, trapping him from both sides. It's too late, though. He's already activated the drawing, and now it's spread all over the city with every part activated. The brothers found out Isaac had the Philosopher's Stone, the most powerful stone there is. However, Isaac asked them to join him, but they said no because they didn't like his hairstyle. Alphonse, also called out, kicked him away. Edward asked about the Philosopher's Stone because it can turn his brother back into a human. But Isaac made fun of him and used water to make an ice train to attack them. The Elric brothers ran away, but an old man came and hit the ice train so hard it went the other way. Ice walls started to show up everywhere, and the hot handsome Isaac was in charge of them. Just to be clear, I'm not saying I like him that way. Isaac was heading towards King Bradley's house to attack him when the Elric brothers showed up and broke the ice train in two. Isaac threw hot water at them and then cut off Al's head. but he was shocked to see there was nothing inside the armor. He figured out that Al's spirit was tied to the armor. He asked the Elric brothers how Al lost his body, and Edward lost part of his. It's a sad story for Ed, so he got really mad when Isaac brought it up. We saw a quick memory of Ed doing some forbidden magic and losing his brother's body and part of his own. After remembering this, Ed got really angry and went after Isaac to show him there are some things we shouldn't do. They told Isaac to give up, but he used his own body to attack Ed and manages to injure him several times. By now, the ice wall was all over the city. Ed took out the piece of Isaac's body that hit him and got ready to chase him. Somewhere else, Roy Mustang and some police shot at the ice wall with cannon, but it fixed itself. Roy got really mad and used fire to break the wall. Meanwhile, Isaac, my hot sexy man, tried to run away in an alley, but King Bradley showed up. Isaac was surprised, laughed a lot, and then used his body to make a sword and go after Bradley. But Bradley showed him why he's the king. Isaac died right there, and the Philosopher's Stone disappeared. Roy and an old grandpa managed to break all the ice walls and save the people from being stuck in a big freezer. The Elric brothers got there and were surprised to see the king. However, the king said well done to them for their brave work. The next day, at the military office, Roy found out from Hughes that the king gave him all the credit and raised his pay. But I don't think my brother was happy about that. At the hospital, the grandpa came with flowers for Ed. But then he took off his clothes, and the Elric brothers started yelling. I'm not sure what happened next. A few days had passed, and we saw the brothers on a train, heading out to track down the Philosopher's Stone. They were chatting about a priest who could conjure stuff out of thin air. Ed mentioned that the Philosopher's Stone was the real deal for making such miracles happen. They were almost there, just a few miles away from laying their hands on it. Then were thrown into a flashback from a decade ago. We found out that Ed's dad had left them, and they were on their own. One day, their mom walked into their room to call them for dinner and got a surprise. Both brothers were deep into alchemy. Ed showed off a little, turning mud into a bird. Their mom was delighted and gave them both kudos. But then, life threw a curveball. A pandemic struck, and their mom succumbed to the illness. They kept hoping their dad would come back, but he was a no-show. Hours went by at their mom's grave, and El's tummy was rumbling. Ed, though, had bigger plans. He was set on bringing their mom back using human transmutation. El was worried. It was taboo in alchemy, and they didn't know the first thing about doing it. In the middle of this, Winry, a neighborhood girl, dropped by to invite them to dinner. The brothers were a bit snippy, but hunger won out, and they dashed off to eat. At the table, El was all good with Grandma's milk, but Ed was picky, insisting on cow's milk only. Grandma warned him he'd stay short if he didn't drink up, but Ed wasn't fazed. Skip ahead a few days, and we see the brothers with Winry heading home from school. Winry's curious about why they're zoning out in class and what they're scheming. Ed's response, it's none of her business. Once home, they're determined to pull off the human transmutation ritual to bring their mom back. They spent the whole night digging into books, figuring out the ritual. They lined up all the ingredients and were ready to roll. El scribbled the mantra on the floor, and they both nicked their fingers to kick things off. The chakra lit up, and they were buzzing with excitement, thinking their mom was about to return. But then, things took a dark turn. A black aura enveloped the chakra, and El freaked out. An eye popped open, and El lost an arm. Next, Ed lost a leg. And just like that, El was swallowed by the black aura. Suddenly, Ed was in some weird place, totally lost. He thought he was dreaming until this mysterious figure showed up. The figure claimed to be everything: the god, the air, the water, even Ed himself. Then a gate yanked Ed in, and he was falling into an abyss. His life flashed before his eyes, and he lost another leg and an arm. He begged for it to stop, but the figure was just soaking it in. Ed thought he saw his mom, but before he could reach her, he was back at the gate. The figure taunted him, asking how he liked the trip. Ed pleaded to go through the gate again, thinking his mom was in there. But the figure said the gate had already been opened for the price Ed paid. Ed was stunned to learn he'd lost his limbs. Back in the real world, Ed woke up to the horror that his brother was gone. He screamed for his mom, but when she appeared, she was a mess. She died again right in front of him. Ed was in agony, but managed to bind El's spirit to a suit of armor. Fast forward 4 years, and Roy Mustang shows up at their place, looking for them. Roy's horror intensified as he surveyed the ritual site, the cryptic symbols etched into the floor, the air thick with forbidden alchemy. His steps quickened, fueled by a mix of dread and anger, as he stormed toward the grandmother's house. Inside, Ed sat in a wheelchair. Without hesitation, Roy seized Ed by the collar, demanding answers. "What have you done?" he growled, unaware that the armor behind Ed concealed El, his younger brother. Elle's voice trembled, pleading for forgiveness. Roy's shock deepened. These audacious alchemists had dared to perform human transmutation. Their skill impressed him, even as their actions horrified him. "You're young," Roy said, reluctant admiration coloring his words, "yet skilled." He leaned in, eyes fixed on Ed. "Join the military. Your talents could be an asset." But he added, "I won't force you. Refuse if you wish." The grandmother's voice cut through the tension. "Alchemy nearly destroyed us them," she declared. "They won't join the state alchemist military." Roy nodded solemnly. "Farewell," he said, turning away. Their fate hung in the balance, and Roy Mustang left, leaving their choices echoing behind him. In the next scene, we see that Ed's taken the military's offer and is getting ready for an operation to attach metal arms and legs. He's curious about how long it'll take to get used to them, so he asks Granny. She tells him it's gonna be at least 3 years of practice. But Ed's feeling bold and tells her he'll have it down in just 1 year. He also makes a promise to Elle, saying he'll get his body back no matter what. Keeping true to his word, we see that just 6 months later, the Elric brothers are training super hard. Ed's even learned to change his metal arm into any weapon he wants. He tells Elle to give it a shot, but Elle admits he doesn't know how. Then we're taken to the State Alchemist headquarters. King Bradley can't believe a kid is about to take the State Alchemist exam. When he sees Ed's metal arm, he's gotta ask how it happened. Ed, trying to be slick, says it happened while he was shaking a banana and his hand just broke. The examiner wants to see what Ed can do, so our unlikely hero draws a circle and pulls a spear right out of the ground. He gets all intense and charges at the king, pointing the spear at him. He tells the king he better change how these exams work, or he might end up getting hurt by someone else. The king thanks him for the tip and heads out. But then the spear breaks in two, and Ed's left standing there, surprised, remembering the king draw his sword. Now Ed's got his official letter from Roy Mustang, and they've given him a cool new nickname, Fullmetal Alchemist. You can tell Ed's totally loving it. The flashback wraps up, and we're back to Elle trying to wake Ed up. Ed's determined, saying he's gonna get that Philosopher's Stone no matter what. The next part of the story will be covered in the next episode. Thank you for watching.